Hey, what's up, Guardians? TBL here, coming back at you fresh, well, almost fresh, off of that recent Bungie Crucible and PvE Sandbox livestream, and we are going to be talking to you a little bit about some of the things that were announced in today's video. I have got myself a list of highlights and notes from the show, and I'm going to be going through them one by one and just giving my opinion on them because there really was a lot to talk about. These streams from Bungie detailing the stuff coming up in the April Spring update, which is next week, by the way. We're almost there, baby. They've mostly been pretty good, and I'm not gonna lie, while Prison of Elders is great, and seeing the new weapons and stuff was fantastic. I can't wait to get my hands on some of those new armor sets. I think more than anything else, I was concerned about the changes to the game's PvP atmosphere, because of course, Destiny's PvP is kind of what's been holding the game up in between these long releases for PvE content. I mean, it's been, what, 7 months since we got some decent PvE content, and in between that, it's just been all PvP, so that worked in year one. You know, we had a pretty long wait between House of Wolves and Dark Below, or rather, from Dark Below to House of Wolves, but because the PvP was pretty well done, it didn't seem like, it wasn't too bad of a wait. You know, you could still log on to Destiny and have a fun time in PvP. That really isn't so much the case right now in the Taken King. You know, between all the changes that have gone through over the past couple of months, like the implementation and proliferation, really, of skill-based matchmaking, the weird glitches, the bad connections, and the, I mean, let's be honest, questionable weapon balance. The PvP has definitely not been as good as it could be, and it hasn't been a great way to keep people's interest in Destiny. So really, when it was announced that we would be getting 3 pre-patch live streams showing off everything coming in the April Spring update, and when they said that one of those live streams, the last one, the one we got yesterday, was going to be dedicated to Crucible and PvE Sandbox changes, I basically did backflips. That makes me super duper happy to hear because, of course, a sandbox change means subclass changes, it means atmosphere changes, it usually means matchmaking changes, it means weapon balance changes, and all the things that I really wanted to hear from Bungie. And you know, grade-wise, of most of the things that I wanted to hear, Bungie hit almost all of the notes yesterday. There was some good, there was some bad, and then there was some really good, and we're going to be discussing most of it in today's video. I don't want this thing to go on too long, so we might wind up breaking this up in between video for most of the general changes today, and then maybe another video for some of the other stuff. But let's go ahead and start off on this list here. First up, we've got some general changes coming to the Crucible, the first of which revolves around a change in revives. Now you have to get closer to your friend's ghost to get the revive, and it takes a little bit longer for you to get them back up, even with a faster revive perk. You also can't sprint revive anymore, so no more of those sprint dash, slide through your friend's ghost and pick them up and slide off into safety. Also, overshields have taken a bit of a hit in terms of nerfs. They're a little bit less powerful, which generally means that you'll now be able to revive snipe with mid-level and low-impact sniper rifles, which I know a lot of people out there are really happy to hear. Everybody wants to use their own favorite type of weapon, but for the most part, you're pretty much forced to use the higher-impact stuff like Black Spindle or the 1,000-yard stare. Looks like that's not going to be the case anymore. Way Lauren's March, here I come, baby. Next up, in Trials, they added 2 seconds to the revive timer specifically for the Trials of Osiris. So I think it takes about 7 seconds for each revive now. Which, in combination with some of the other upcoming changes, means that Trials is going to be all about that initial push. You take out one person on the enemy team, and then the 3 of you just rush the remaining 2 Guardians down. Which is, I think that's kind of a good thing. That's the way Trials should be. Instead of just a, you know, sit back in your spawn, camp sniper lames, we got one shot off, but we can't go push on the rest of them because they've got snipers up on us, and that was never fun for me. But that being said, we've also got some other changes that are going to affect sniper rifles in the Trials of Osiris. Special ammo has basically been restored like it used to be. You'll now spawn into a match with special ammo, but the special ammo crates will now spawn 3 minutes into a match instead of 30 seconds. And then your second set of special ammo will spawn an additional 2 minutes in. So you'll get your first special ammo box at 3 minutes, and then your second special ammo box at 5 minutes into a match. So overall, you're going to have less special per match. This is done primarily to help continue to focus the combat away from being purely about special weapons. Because really, when you're in Trials of Osiris, before the previous special weapon changes, it was all about sniper rifles. And I mean, even right now with stuff like Icebreaker and Invective, it's really all about having those guns out and then swapping over to your high-impact sniper to finish things up. So these changes were made to put a better emphasis on using your primary weapons, which is absolutely the right choice. But alright, moving on to another big one in the ammo economy, heavy weapons. In every single Crucible playlist except for Mayhem, heavy weapons will only spawn once, or rather heavy ammo will only spawn once. That's a huge change, especially with the way LMGs are working right now. You can generally get your first heavy spawn, get yourself a pretty decent LMG like the Raid LMG or something like Super Good Advice or Thunderlord, and then just run havoc throughout the rest of the match. And if you played carefully enough, you could really have heavy ammo all match long, which definitely isn't fun for the enemy team. Alright, next up we got a couple of confirmations. Shaxx is going to have his own new quest line after the update goes live. Trials of Osiris Lighthouse gear will of course be dropping gear up to the maximum light level of 335, so that's great for all you Trials guys out there. And Iron Banner gear will be dropping 320 rewards at rank 3 and 5. But they also made mention that you will be able to get 335 gear from Iron Banner, although I don't know if it's from just regular end-of-the-match drops or what. I don't think they really clarified too much on that, or maybe I just missed it. And that's pretty much all of the Crucible changes. We are going to get a couple of new bounties, and of course you can get your Sterling Treasure from competing in the weekly Crucible activity. But for the most part, that's it. I am a little bit surprised that they didn't mention anything to do with matchmaking. That kind of worries me a little bit, because as you guys have seen in some of my more recent videos, like that Iron Banner video from earlier this week, matchmaking is still definitely a problem. So the fact that they didn't mention anything about matchmaking at all doesn't inspire confidence, but we'll see. I mean, they even had lag in their test environment during the stream yesterday. You saw at one point a Warlock kind of teleporting all over the place. I mean, hopefully that's something they talk about as we move forward towards the spring update, because the matchmaking right now, while definitely, I'll admit, it's better than how it was in December, or in January, I suppose, that really shouldn't be the measuring bar for which we take a look at Destiny's matchmaking, because it was just absolutely terrible back then, and it's still fairly bad now. But alright, let's take a look at some of the weapon changes here. There are quite a few, some of which I'm really excited about. Auto rifles for the high rate of fire archetype are getting a reduction in their base damage. I mean, a small damage reduction, I should say. This is the archetype with your Arminius D, your Doctrine of Passing, your Payback SOS, your Dr. Nope if you've still got that. And while it is getting a base damage reduction, from the stream itself, it looked like the damage reduction only really lowered the damage per shot by about 1 point, which is definitely not bad at all. Overall, it's definitely gonna raise your time to kill, but not by a significant amount. It's not like the old auto rifle nerf we got back in year 1 that really took guns like the Vanquisher, the Grim Citizen, the Souris Regime out of their high spot. Which, by the way, that archetype of auto rifle, the low rate of fire, high impact autos, are getting a base damage increase. While we didn't get specific numbers, which is something I'm expecting to happen in this week's weekly update, or excuse me, this week at Bungie, it did look like the damage increase was significant, which is good because that's obviously the archetype of auto rifle that was suffering the hardest in the Crucible right now. In particular, Souris Regime was definitely a far cry away from how good it was in year 1, and that even got some specific changes as well. First up, it got a base damage increase, and we also got some changes to both the Spinning Up perk and Focus Fire. For Spinning Up, the increase to your rate of fire now starts a little bit later. It's about 4 shots later than where it starts right now. And for Focus Fire, well, it got a significant range increase. As a matter of fact, with some of the other range boosting perks on the Suros, if you mix and match them with Focus Fire, you can actually get a maximum range auto rifle that hits like an absolute truck. Fantastic change in my opinion, because right now there was really no reason to use Focused Fire over Spinning Up, at least in my opinion. With spinning up, you get that damage out faster, and it allows you to activate the Souris Regime special ability, which causes increased damage with the bottom half of the magazine even faster. So now we've actually got a reason to use Focus Fire, since it'll turn the Souris into a long-range, hard-hitting auto. Fantastic change in my opinion. Alright, next up we've got a change to the low rate of fire high impact pulse rifles. Think your Ludmilla D or your Hopscotch Pilgrim. May it forever rest in peace. But they got themselves a base damage increase. This increase will more reliably allow you to get those 2-burst precision headshot kills, while not really decreasing the archetype of weapon's time to kill so that it's faster than, say, the high rate of fire pulse rifles. Definitely another great change. Now this next one I'm super excited about, as was most of the Twitch chat it would seem, and this would be the changes that are coming to fusion rifles. All fusion rifles are getting their base stability increased, and this was very, very evident throughout the stream as they were making a point of using fusion rifles all over the place and actually landing their shots. And speaking of landing shots, we're also getting some pretty big changes to sniper rifles. The zoom distance on the low zoom scopes is going to be pushed out a bit, basically making those low zoom scopes a little less low. They're increasing the range and slightly slowing down the zoom animation on the 3 lowest zoom scopes, including short gaze and ambush. They basically stated they don't want people to be able to use sniper rifles like mid-range battle rifles akin to what's happening in the Crucible today. The snapshot perk's also being hit, so you won't be able to zoom in quite as fast. Next up, the Mida multi-tool is getting one change. They're removing high caliber rounds, which kind of sucks because that was what made the gun so great. I mean, well, in addition to all the other fantastic things about Mida, but that was the thing that made it super duper great in PvE, being able to stagger your enemies with nearly every single shot. So it sucks, but it's not really that big of a change to the weapon. It's still going to be a monster in PvP. Next up, Icebreaker. It's still a Year 1 weapon, not being brought forward into Year 2, but from now on, you won't be able to start a match with Icebreaker, build up your special ammo, and then swap that over to another gun and have that ammo transfer over. So, that old Trials cheese is as good as gone. Telesto's also getting some changes. They fixed a small issue where the projectiles didn't recognize when you shot them at allies. So now you will be able to shoot the Telesto at your friends, turn them into walking bombs, and have them run straight into your enemies. The Dreg's Promise is making its way into Year 2, and they're doing their best to turn it into a decent gun, which is good because it was all but useless in Year 1. Now it has a very interesting ability that it seemed like Bungie themselves weren't even really too sure about. It looked like they thought it might be a little bit broken, and who knows, it might be. But the Dreg's Promise now shoots projectiles that lock onto their targets if you ADS. So if you were to bring that thing up, ADS at an enemy, and then fire, those projectiles would lock onto that target and try to curve themselves into it. It seems like a pretty cool ability, but we'll have to see if it actually helps the Dreg's Promise perform a little bit better in PvE or PvP when the update goes live. Now, there were a couple of changes to the King's Fall weapons. Overall, they all have increased reload speed, and the auto rifle itself now has better stability. Maybe that'll make it worth using. While the machine gun Quillam's Terminus now has reduced inventory size, which the same can be said for the 1000-yard stare. Bungie said the 1000-yard stare is the most used special weapon in Destiny's history. Now, I think they have a bad idea for why that is. It's not because it's so much better than everything else, it's just the only high-impact sniper rifle in Year 2 that was actually worth it. But they saw fit to nerf it because of its popularity, so it's going to have a smaller magazine size. Oh, and a stronger scope, because this is how Bungie patches things. But alright, the last thing we're going to talk about in terms of balancing here are the hand cannons. Now there is one big blanket change coming to the hand cannon class, and that centers around ammo. Bungie has stated that they are going to be significantly increasing hand cannon ammo, almost kind of undoing some of the changes they made when Taken King came out. Funny how that keeps happening with Bungie patching. This is definitely a good thing. I have been saying it since the changes were initially made right before the Taken King came out to the hand cannon class that they really didn't need this reduction of ammo and magazine size. As a matter of fact, it all but killed the legendary hand cannons in PvE and PvP. Now additionally, I think the hand cannon class needs more accuracy, and thankfully Bungie did buff its accuracy slightly, I think back in the December update, but it's still nowhere near enough in my opinion. And unfortunately, we're not getting another blanket accuracy buff in the April Spring update. But that's okay because we're getting some changes to some of the bigger hand cannons out there. And by bigger, I mean exotic. And by exotic, I mean Hawkmoon, Thorn, and the Last Word. Hawkmoon is getting its base range increased, which is great. The Last Word is having its base damage decreased in the Last Word perk. It's still going to be a 3-shot kill, and you still get the aim assist and stability, just a little bit less damage, which I guess is okay. People were complaining that Last Word is still killing a little bit too reliably and a little bit too quickly. You're still going to have to get those cowboy hipfire shots, though. And then finally, the big bad Thorn. It's not being brought forward into Year 2 yet. It's still going to be a Year 1 weapon, but they've now minimized the dot damage of the Mark of the Devourer. They've reduced it from 6 to 4, and it causes a less intense effect when you're shot by it. So no more completely green fire screen effect, which is absolutely fantastic. And that's pretty much it, guys. Those are most of the changes announced in Bungie's stream yesterday for the Sandbox changes and the upcoming April Spring update. Now, something I haven't talked about here is Warlocks and the changes that are coming to those subclasses. That's because I want to do a completely separate video on its own for that, because I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about what I like about the changes and what I dislike. One of the big things that I'm really surprised they didn't address was Firebolt. Although technically they did address it, they just said they don't really know how they want to balance it, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about that in another video. I know a lot of you guys are angry about that. You should be more angry that Blade Dancers didn't get touched. But alright, that's it for this video, guys. It went on a little bit longer than I was expecting it to, but we had a lot to go through. Be sure to let me know what you think of the upcoming Crucible and PvE Sandbox changes in the comment section below. Are you happy about them? Or maybe not so much? Or was there something in particular you just really wanted to see? Be sure to let me know. But alright, thanks so much for watching this video, guys. And as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.